Support for Veterans Corner Radio is made possible by M&M Printing and the Observer News of Ruskin, Florida.
Hello and welcome to Veterans Corner Radio Podcasts, information for and about veterans. Today, host Joe Mulberger has a conversation with retired United States Air Force Master Sergeant Michael Antis. Michael was born in 1935 in Yugoslavia, in what today is Serbia, in a town which was eventually occupied by Nazi Germany during World War II. Following the war, Russian soldiers rounded up his family and other families in his town and placed them in starvation camps. You'll learn about post-World War II life under the conditions of communist Russia and the Soviet Union, and how one child and his family escaped life behind the Iron Curtain and survived to become American citizens. Here now is Joe Mulberger with Veterans Corner Radio on Veterans Corner Radio Podcasts.
Welcome to Veterans Corner Radio, a show dedicated to providing information to all those who have served our country's military and to their families. Now, here is your host, combat veteran and educator, retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Joe Mulberger.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Joe Mulberger, host of Veterans Corner Radio, and it is an absolute honor today to have with us retired United States Air Force Master Sergeant Michael Antis. Michael, you have a very interesting story to tell, but we need to set things up for folks so they understand. At the end of World War I, Europe was in hard poverty. At the end of World War II, Europe was heading towards severe poverty, and then the United States, with former, now retired, General of the Army, George C. Marshall, he came up with, as Secretary of State, what was called the Marshall Plan as a saving grace to prevent Europe from going into the poverty that they seen following World War I. But your story is of life as a prisoner under the post-World War II regime of the hands of the Soviets or the Russians. And we really want to dive into that. Tell us, Michael, when were you born and where were you born?
I was born in Modush, Yugoslavia, and I was born in November 14, 1935.
And that portion of Yugoslavia later became what's known as Serbia, right?
Yes.
And what was the town that, and it's a German name that you were born into for the town?
Ernsthausen.
Ernsthausen. And so you were born there, 1935. You grow up, the war rages. It falls under Nazi Germany occupation, and then 1945 arrives, and the Russians move in.
Yes.
Germany and Berlin and Austria and Vienna were broken into 4 zones, British zone, an American zone, and a French zone, and the 4th zone was a Russian zone. And so we're going to come back to that because this sets the stage for our audience of listeners. Now, let's go back to post-World War II. You have survived this existence under the Nazi regime, and now the Russians move in. And what happens to you and your family when the Russians roll in?
Well, the Russians came in and took all the people 14 years and older and shipped them off to the coal mines in Siberia. And hardly any of them came back. We were put into, they rounded us up, the whole town, and put us in one section of the town, surrounded by soldiers with no food or anything to survive. And from that camp, we moved to a bigger camp. It's a city surrounded by soldiers, so nobody could get in and out. And they called it starvation camp. where, where no food was given out for 3 months. We lived of whatever we could find. And one of the things I still remember good is we could go and pick grass and made spinach out of it. And that's probably why I don't want vegetable anymore. And yes, so the food was scarce. Almost half the people died, mostly young children and grandmothers. Remember, they took away the mothers and sisters and shipped them off to Siberia. So most of those people died. I had lost one sister in that camp too. And we just roamed around, picked up anything we could find. We had the horse-drawn wagon go through the streets twice a day, picking up bodies and take them into mass graves. And that's where one of my sisters wound up there. And so food was scarce. All the animals, dogs and cats disappeared. And the commander's dog disappeared. And he rounded us all up and marched us out through the soccer field. And it was a very hot day, made us stand there without water or anything. No food, no water. So we went back to our camp and our place and eat whatever we could find. So it was a rough time. We were nothing but skin and bones at that time. And we heard one time that a wagon was coming into town with potatoes. So all us young kids, I was still young then, trying to go ahead and steal some potatoes. And here the soldiers come, trying to round us up. A lot of them escaped. I was halfway up the fence, and he pulled me back down by the lake. So all the ones they caught, they put us down in a cellar, started beating up on us, and they put us into they took off their belts and started beating up on us. And it was so bad that I did my number one and had to run out of there once they let us go. And we're going towards our place where we stayed. My older brother, he was out in the field digging. There used to be potato field. So he's the one that came up with potatoes, and we didn't get nothing. So that was potatoes. What they do to survive was also set up traps for birds. Usually it's small birds. And once we caught them, my mother cooked them, and the little bit of meat we had was delicious. We enjoyed that. And so when we tried to escape, we were moved to our third camp, which was close to Hungary, and we planned on escaping. We were watching the guards move out in the field back and forth. So one evening we decided, okay, we're going to go, and we went, and we got a little far out of the camp, and there were two soldiers on bikes, and they seen us.
And Michael, these are two Russian soldiers, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and then we try to hide in the cornfield. So they come up to our spot, start clicking the rifle and say, either you come out or we shoot you. So we all came out. They put my dad in isolation for 2 weeks. And the day they let him out, the same night, we went ahead and tried it again. We made it almost through Yugoslavia into Hungary, but we didn't make it, so we were hiding in a cornfield all day. We could hear the people around us working, and we had a baby, my baby sister, and every time she tried to scream, my mom had to hold her mouth so she wouldn't scream. But once it got dark again, we made it into Hungary, start marching through Hungary. We got to Budapest, and we needed to get across the Donau, so we had a guy on a boat take us across. We wound up in a flea market, so we were grabbing things we could ever find without paying. And that evening, we started marching through Hungary, which took us 2 weeks. And when we got to the border to cross, we split up. So when we had a family, a woman and a daughter help us with the small kids. We split up to get across the border. So what happens, they catch the first ones, take it to the police station, and instead of us trying to make it, we joined them at the police station.
Now, what country is this that you're going
That's
from?
Hungary. That's in Hungary.
In Hungary, okay.
And so what they done, the soldiers,
And are these more Russian soldiers?
and they rounded us up and started marching us back towards Budapest. And it got dark, so he said, we're not going to go any farther. He put us up in a farm, in a barn. They said he'd be back in the morning. So before he got back that morning, we left, and we tried across the border from Hungary into Austria, and we just happened to go past a guard station. They were playing cards or drinking, and we sneaked right by it in Austria. So marching there, we realized there was some food there, apples. So we went there to get apples. Then my dad recognized it was actually one of the soldiers' station. So we turned around, started running into Austria. We got to a road.
Yeah, hang on, Michael. So it's Russian soldiers that are observing you
Yes,
in the apples,
yes,
scrumbing apples, and now you're making a run for it to get
Right.
deeper into
Austria.
Austria.
So we get there to a road, and here comes a guy on a bicycle and screaming at us, you're safe, you're safe. And after that, we got picked up by a truck that took us to a displaced person camp in close to Vienna. And from there, they shipped us to another camp. It was in Spital, Austria. And from there, they put us into the main camp, which was Pfeffernitz, with a lot of people. And food was scarce, so we did whatever we could. And at night, we sneak out and go through fence to pick potatoes from the potato field. And there were so many rocks in there, we used our fingers to see if it's a potato or not, and hurt our fingers real bad. And like I said, in that camp, we went back to school since I only had 2 years. So I went 2 years schooling in Austria. And in the meantime, we were working on our paperwork to come to the States.
Now, Michael, let's catch the audience up on a few details. In 1945, you're 10 years of age, so you were not caught up in the 14 years and older group that ended up going to Siberia.
No, because I wasn't still young. I was 14 years and older.
And you were in that camp from 1945 to 1948.
Right.
You make your escape, and the escape, you've lost a sister. Now, your
Indeed.
parents had 10 children, right? You're one
Right.
of 10. You lost a sister there, correct?
Yeah, we lost a sister in the camp.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your father and oldest brother, they were initially separated from you and put to a work camp,
Yes.
while you and the rest of your family remained in the starvation camp.
Right.
Then in 1948, you and your family, after being moved to 3 different camps, have made this escape. And now it's 1948, you're in Austria, and you're together with all of your family members that have survived so far. So what's next? You're in what's called a displaced persons camp in Pfeffernitz, Austria. How long are you going to be there?
5 years.
5 years. Now, I think we've caught the audience up where your family is and the timeline. It's now 1948. Tell us what happens.
When we came,
You were doing your paperwork to go to the States, correct?
my mother and myself, since I had at least 2 years schooling, I went to Salzburg, Austria. I think that was an embassy or consulate, whatever, and start filling out papers to come to the States. And we had to make about 3 trips, I believe. And after the paperwork was done, the Catholic Relief Organization stepped in and found us a place in the USA, in Virginia, really, and moved us to Bremen. We caught the ship there.
Now, what year is this?
That's in 48.
In 48, you're moved up to Bremen.
No, 48, 52.
So in
52.
52, after a couple of trips back and forth to Salzburg to the U.S. consulate or embassy. The Catholic Relief Agency intervenes, and they are going to sponsor you and your family to go to the States.
Right.
Okay.
So they found us a farm, a milk farm, dairy farm,
Now you're getting a little ahead of us. What was the name of the ship that you took?
SS Hershey.
And then you end up in New York. Now, the Statue of Liberty is something that, as troops are leaving the United States or coming back, this is the symbol of America. Was it the same sort of an affinity for you showing up and seeing the Statue of
The
Liberty?
Statue of Liberty, and they put us on Ellis Island till transportation was arranged to go to Virginia.
And then you're in Virginia, and how does that work out? Who's there to receive you?
The farmer and the priest, and they put us on the farm. They gave us the second house. They had guest house or whatever, and we stayed there. We worked on the farm. The older boys worked in the dairy, milking cows and things like that. And I was just helping around in the garden, and we had a lot of peaches we had to pick. And I wasn't too happy, so I started working in an organ factory, a pipe organ, and he went bankrupt. So I got a job at Plantus Peanuts in the print shop. At the same time, I went back to school. They put me in the 7th grade since I missed all those years. And I finished that year. I started a second year in a different school. And remember that I had two things. I went to school for morning till 4 o'clock, then I had to rush to get to the peanut factory for the second job. And I woke up normally around 1 o'clock to do my homework. So that went on. I made it through the first time, the 7th grade there. And then the 8th grade, I was almost halfway through the 8th grade when I decided it's too much school and work. So I went to Norfolk, which is the biggest city, and went to the recruiting office.
Now, which recruiter did you see?
Air Force.
Well, there you go. You couldn't have had it any better.
Well, I took Army first, but a couple of weeks later we went to watch a movie, Air Force movie, bombing and all this. So I went to Air Force recruiter. I passed the test too, so I went ahead and joined the Air Force.
What did you do in the Air Force? What year was that when you went in the Air Force?
55.
Now, how old were you when you went in?
19 and a half.
19 and a half. And then you stayed in the Air Force how long?
25 years.
And you retired what year?
1980.
And what was it that you did in the Air Force?
Well, I did several things. The main thing I did was being a resource manager, advisor to the base commander as far as money goes. People had to come through me to tell me how much money they want, and then I had to relay it to the commander. That was the last 4 years of my career.
Now, this set you up. You retired at a Shaw Air Force Base, and then you got hired by AFES, and you were back in Germany
Right.
at Rheinmain in Frankfurt, and you did that from what time frame?
Well, we went to Germany on a hop, Air Force hop, and then we went to Rheinmain and checked to see if we find a job. It took us about 3-4 weeks before I got hired, and then later she got hired. I wound up being the base computer operator for the registers, and my wife wound up being a supervisor of the cashiers. So we stayed there 14 years.
Wow.
And the kids came visit, had a little daughter that decided us to come back, and we came here to Florida.
So now you're retired in Florida. Now, let's go back to something. You were born in what's now the former Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
As a kid, less than 10 years of age, you fell under the occupation of Nazi Germany. Do you have recollections about what it was like?
Well, the only thing I remember is the Germans just went through the town to the Russian front, tanks, trucks, and all this. And then they could go to reverse. The Germans go running the other way from the Russians. The Russians came through there. We used to hide behind walls, start throwing rocks at them. and hide so we wouldn't get killed. And the Russians came in, and that's when it all started.
So the Germans, the
Didn't do nothing.
occupation, they just left you alone.
Yes.
They were just
Yeah.
transitioning between
Transitioning.
wherever they had come from to wherever they were going to fight the Eastern Bloc, the
Right.
Russians. So you were really just a bunch of folks hanging out in your town in Serbia?
Well, we also had dogfights, airplanes right over town, and one of them got hit and it crashed almost in our chimney, wound up in the soccer field. So, and we also went at night. I mean, we went out in the fields, lay down, and watched the American planes fly over into the Romania, the oil fields. So we seen all that.
The Ploiest.
Yeah.
Now, let's move time forward and talk about Michael. In 1959, you're in the U.S. Air Force, and you're stationed in France?
Well, I was at Barksdale,
Yes.
and it got shipped to Châteauroux. I mean, the old French. So,
And you were the best-looking guy at some dance one night,
yes,
and you found the best-looking girl there.
that's right.
Now, what's her name?
It's Michelle. Her maiden name is Fichon.
And you end up finding this adorable French lady. When did you get married?
In 1959.
And how many children have you got?
2.
How many grandchildren do you have?
2.
Do you have any great-grandchildren?
No, not yet.
Well, that's a wonderful story of having survived what was a very traumatic existence. I'm sure your wife has stories of her own,
Yes.
having lived under, now she was probably not under the Vichy government, she was probably under the Nazi government.
Yes, she was occupied by the Nazis too. But one thing that was real terrible in our camp, they shipped 39 men from the work camp. They were volunteers because they didn't feel like they couldn't work. And they put them in a restaurant. In the meantime, during daytime, they rounded up anything that could cut, axes, saws. And that night, they got drunk and they slaughtered all 39 men. And then they had to use shovels to load them on a wagon to take them to the seminary.
Jeez.
They were cut up that bad.
Well, you've seen the darkest of the dark, what one person can do to another. But we can honestly say, as we do here on Veterans Corner Radio, our veterans, our fans of veterans, and our families of veterans are worth their value in gold. Today, sir, thank you very much, retired United States Air Force Master Sergeant Michael Antis, for all that you've done in your personal life, professional life, and for what you've done as an American, a true American who emigrated here properly and took it full length and served our nation for 25 years. We thank you very much for your time today. And is there anything that you'd like to say to the audience before we sign off?
Well, it's just what's happening nowadays with those illegal immigrants. When we came over, the train ride coming from New York to Virginia, they sent us a bill we had to pay. What's happening now, they put them up in hotels, illegal immigrants. And so that's what I think about, and calling detention camp or whatever they call them, concentration camps. They don't know what they're talking about. They never lived through one.
And today, this interview, so that folks listening to this in the years to come, has taken place in August of 2025. And that way, folks will know in the years to come. When was that interview held? And we've got it for posterity's sake.
Well,
thank you very much, sir.
Okay. All right.
You've been listening to Veterans Corner Radio with your host, retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Joe Mulberger. The views expressed on this program are those of Joe and his guests and are opinions based on the best available information. In matters of law or governmental regulation, it will always be best to check with the appropriate agency. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll join us for the next program on Veterans Corner Radio.
Here's a quick final thought. If you're enjoying these podcasts, why not take a minute to subscribe or mark Veterans Corner Radio as a favorite? It's easy, and you'll be set to be among the first to find out when new podcasts are published. And thanks again for listening to Veterans Corner Radio.